green jersey in the Tour de France. I think the local riders, though, and the local people, Paul, will be cheering for this rider.
Yeah, Laurent Dufaux comes off a very bad Tour de France, but I think he'll be looking to do something later in the year. The other Swiss favourite, Oscar Kamenzin, the former world champion.
This race, by the way, voted the best of the World Cup Series last year on the UCI list, and now it looks as though these riders here are going to make it yet another favourite for the day. Jan Ullrich, they're all here.
It's amazing, really, because there are so many guys actually riding these one-day classics after the Tour de France field because of the proximity of the Olympic Games. This man will be a man to watch at the Olympic Games too. Oscar Freire, the current world champion from Spain.
A surprise he was when he won the title, but he's been a very good world champion, and looking forward to continuing that form. Lance Armstrong, the past 2 years now the winner of the Tour de France. US Postal taking a late decision to come to this event.
Well, Armstrong actually was second in the Championship of Zurich back in 1992, a week after he turned professional.
Having a little problem finding his name, putting his X down and stepping off.
It's the winner from last year, Gregor Gerawadowski. He raced for the Cofidis team last year, now riding for the Française des Jeux. A bit of a surprise winner last year, which is rather strange for this race field because normally it's big winners who come from the big categories.
Fingers in ears, one rider going the wrong way, but he's turned around the right way now. This 28-man teams in the event. The big missing is Benesto and Kelme from Spain and the retiring Vitalicio Seguros team. They are going out this season, which is rather sad.
Well, it's a strange race because over the last few years, Phil, they've tried many different recipes to try and come up with a successful World Cup event. They did a few years ago start right the way in Basel before riding across country here to finish in Zurich. And today we're looking at a very interesting route that they've picked, 6 laps of a 40-kilometre circuit, and we'll take a quick look at that because the high spot is 700 metres in altitude.
The 2 climbs there, you can see them, Forges and Van den Ziel, and the course is 6 times around this circuit, making a total of 248.4 kilometres. The 41-kilometre laps, by the way, culminate in just under 3,500 metres of climbing. It's a tough one. This is the situation in the World Cup. Eric Zabel with a very big lead over Andre Schmil. Romans Veensteins is in there in 3rd place, a vastly improving rider. Paolo Bettini on his best season as well is 4th. Fabio Baldato, despite the fact he doesn't get the wins like he used to, is still right up there. Further down the list, we've got big names like Casagrande, David Rebellin, Marcus Zuberg, Michael Bogert, again not having a great season. And right at the bottom there, the American rider, George Hincapie.
Well, Hincapie getting his points in the early season classics in the Tour of Flanders and in Paris-Roubaix, where he put in a sterling performance. But you know, this is a very difficult course, Phil, because in the early part of the circuit, they're actually very much in an urban circuit, and there's a lot of traffic circles, and that causes the race to build up and break apart quite rapidly. The important thing, I think, here with 55 kilometres to go is we've got a breakaway with some of the big names of world cycling in it.
Well, this, in all fairness, Paul, I think is the strongest breakaway of big names I've seen all year in any world race, because just about all of the top names are in the breakaway, including the current world champion. There he is, Oscar Freire, and Lance Armstrong, the Tour de France winner.
And former world champion Oscar Kamenzin is in there. Ullrich, Laurent Dufaux, the local favourite. There's Armstrong, still looking very lean and mean, with Casagrande going through there for the Vinny Calderillo team. Interesting to see that Armstrong is still racing these one-day classics. He's trying to get himself ready for the Olympic Games, a title which he really believes he can get in the time trial.
Tough call for all of the big riders this year, having ridden the Tour de France. Then they have to take a quick break and in between ride these World Cup races and then come good for the Olympics before going on to the World Road Race. This is Michael Zarabitia, who is trying to have a little dig for the Once team.
Well, this man actually was looking at a fantastic future when he turned professional for Benesto. Had an awful lot of problems with his back. He had a discal hernia, had to have an operation, and he's slowly now coming back to the level that he was at before. But for a lot of these riders, the Spanish riders, Phil, they're thinking much more about the upcoming Tour of Spain.
Well, this is one of those breakaways, I think. If you're a good bike rider, you'd love to be in it, but you look around at the quality of the cyclist around you, and it is a fabulous breakaway. Michele Bartoli, the new champion of Italy, here in this little group.
What's Also in the group, Roman Weinstein's a man who I think if he puts in a couple of good performances over the last few World Cups, Phil, he could actually move up and threaten Eric Zabel. In the early part of the season, we thought Zabel was untouchable. We thought he had the World Cup in the bag and he was going to actually walk away with it. But as we come to the latter part of the season, he's had a very long season, starting back in January at the Tour Down Under in Adelaide.
Well, looking down the shores of Lake Zurich here, this breakaway got away at 188 kilometres in. Armstrong, Ulrich, Francesco Casagrande, Frère, Rebellin, Kamazin, Dufour and Andrei Kivilev. That's the composition. Bartoli trying to reduce the damage here. They have pulled it back a little bit as they've split up behind, but they're still a long way behind. As we're going towards the final lap now, it's going to be a tough call to bring that breakaway back. There's the main field, slowly but surely slowing down, I think.
Really being reduced in numbers. This is a very difficult course here. The fact is you do have these 6 laps, and when it does get tough, a lot of these riders will be looking at the showers and taking a lap out and finishing maybe a little bit earlier than they would have done in a place-to-place event. But you see that group, Phil, at the front, all of those riders for the moment are the top riders in international cycling, and they all feel that they can win this bike race.
This is one of the few occasions, in fact, when Switzerland closes its roads, especially in this region, for a professional bike race, but this one has a long history, starting way back in 1914 when Henri Reinwald of Switzerland was the first winner ahead of Otto Wiedmer. In fact, Swiss riders getting the top 3 places. Really is a beautiful day, but the main field down there looks to me as though they've had enough of it because they know now that the breakaway has gone. There's a chase group as well, and the main field are going to drop a long way behind here.
It's a race that over the last few years has been very much dominated by the Italians. Italians taking the win 5 times out of the last 7 years. Johan Museo breaking into that record of theirs in 1995, and the surprise winner from Poland last year, Gregor Gierdowski of the French Cofidis team at the time. He's not in the breakaway today, but this really is an escape of the heads of states. Jan Ullrich at the moment sitting at the back, and Ullrich, a great one-day rider, Phil. I think he will have to try and win alone because there are some very fast finishers in this group, including Oscar Freire.
Just under 30 miles to go, which means the riders now have been racing for the best part of 5 hours and at average speed of just over 25 miles an hour, despite the 2 severe climbs. It's been a cracking pace by these riders, but it's producing the no names at the front. It's very unusual to see so many good riders get there. The odd one out really as far as reputation goes is probably Andrei Kivilev, and yet he's a rider who one day is going to make himself a big winner. I'm sure of that, maybe today.
It's also a question of pride, I think, in this breakaway, because none of these riders actually want to sit on. They all want to contribute to the front because they are great leaders and heads of state and statesmen for the sport of international cycling. Davide Rebellin is a rider who in the past has been a great rider in one-day bike races, but today he's really up against the best. And maybe we could look at a win for Francesco Casagrande, because I think he's got the right preparation. He rode the Tour of Italy, he didn't ride the Tour de France, and he now is building up towards the Olympic Games in Sydney.
Just watching, going through on the outside there, Jan Ullrich, just calmly having lunch and just keeping his pace, no big effort, just the steady tempo. Armstrong having a little chat with probably Johan Brunel in the team car behind to get an assessment on the chase group led by Michele Bartoli. They know the sprint of Oscar Freire, the world champion. If he gets to the finish and can smell it, then they're going to have a job beating him. Laurent Dufaux riding on home turf as well. He's made the decisive move. A lot of people will be cheering for him now.
It's going to be a difficult one to call, though, because David Rebellin will certainly be looking for the victory here, and this is going to be one which, for the moment, Phil, I don't really want to put my money on, because they're all great winners.
That's right. Because we use these circuits now, we no longer finish on the old rickety track at Oerlikon, which was the old concrete stadium there, which is a shame in many ways. Ulrich knows what it's like to score on there, and it's a dicey old bowl, but it's a much smoother road finish now. And these guys know that all of the action is right here. They've just got to assess now who is the strongest, and I'm sure there'll be a tentative on the final lap on the climbs.
I feel certain somebody's going to try and split this group, because it is rather too large at the moment, and there's some very good climbers in the group, and I have a feeling the attack may well come from Francesco Casagrande. But Ullrich has come off the Tour de France in excellent condition. He is, I think, looking for a big win in a World Cup, Phil. He's in great form right now, and I think he will try and get rid of one or two of these riders, including Oscar Freire.
Well, don't forget, Oscar Freire hasn't won a World Cup, but he had third in Milan-San Remo this year, and he was fifth in San Sebastian not very long ago, so he also is ready for a win.
Ulrich, though, looking very strong indeed, right on the bottom of those bars. A great bike rider, and I think he will go to the Tour of Spain this year as a major favourite, and I think the possibility is that he'll go straight off there and then on to the Olympic Games. The time check there looking like around about 4.5 minutes over the rest of the main field.
Well, that should be enough. Jan Ulrich just taking a look over his shoulder, making sure there's nobody creeping up here. Oscar Freire has slowed down his work rate a little bit, and he's sitting around the back of the field.
Well, Freire obviously getting word from the team car behind that Michele Bartoli was in a small group trying to come across, but I think he will find himself pretty shortly back in the main field as well. Oscar Freire, Phil, for me has been a major revelation this year. A surprise win last year in the World Championships, but he really has confirmed. And if he can get that injury put to rights, then he's going to be a pretty remarkable bike rider over the next few years.
Just looking at the breakaway here, Casagrande and Laurent Dufaux and Kivilev must feel slightly odd here because they're the only ones who've never won an Olympic world title or a gold medal, and they're in this breakaway too.
Well, Laurent Dufaux actually had a pretty good start to the season. He finished 6th overall in the Amstel Gold Race, but had a disastrous Tour de France where he was actually on a course of antibiotics for an inflamed prostate, and he came out of that Tour de France not really in very good shape. He's trying to get himself back into form for the Olympic Games. He has been selected, and that's caused a bit of a stir really, because everybody thought that Pascal Richard, the winner of the Olympic Games road race in Atlanta, should have had an automatic ticket. But this year I don't really think Pascal Richard has got all cylinders firing.
Now, Pascal hasn't had a great season. He came over and gave a lot of credibility to the new Linda McCartney team in Europe, as did Max Chandri. And so Pascal Richard, I think, although he's given us that credibility, he hasn't had a good year at all. He had that problem at the start of the Giro d'Italia along with Ben Brooks, two riders on the Linda McCartney team. Food poisoning overnight after the prologue, and that was as far as they went.
Armstrong taking on board a bottle there, and it looked like Dr. Eric Heiden handing it up.
Eric Heiden, now fully fledged surgeon, giving a handout on the team. Never lost his enthusiasm for the sport of cycling, the great speed skater of Lake Placid in 1980, and then of course a sprint winner in the Tour of Italy as a pro bike rider.
Little acceleration there coming from Armstrong, I think, just to see if everybody's paying attention. But I do feel that we're going to see a big attack as we come into the final lap here. There are two big climbs on the final 40-kilometre circuit, and I'm sure we'll see somebody trying to break this field apart. And I reckon the important thing for these riders is to try and get rid of Oscar Freire, because if they carry him to the finish, he's the most certain winner.
Just over 5 hours completed, the circuit taking just on the hour to get round, so we're looking at time at about 6 hours 8 minutes. And the breakaway now more concerned with each other, I think, than what is going on behind. The peloton here has seen better days, and I would think when they go through the start-finishing line, they're going to plan on dropping out, at least some of them, because they're not making too much pace now.
This is the group of Eric Zabel. Zabel really needs to try and get some points in an event like this and Paris Tours if he's going to run out the overall winner of the World Cup this year. But these are not really the races that suit him, Phil, and he has to go out in races like Paris Tours and just make sure he keeps himself regularly in the points. And what a season that would be for him if he could take the green jersey at the Tour de France and the World Cup title as well.
That'd be wonderful, but the one thing that will give him some consolation is the fact that Andre Schmil, his nearest challenger and World Cup holder, is also in that group with him. And so neither are going to score much, even if they pull off the win in the sprint. The best they can hope for now, I think, is a couple of points in the competition.
Not very many riders left in this main peloton right now, and it seems as if the drive really has gone out. And it's all, Phil, really because of the names in that front group. A lot of them probably wishing they were down here right now alongside the Zurich Zazé, having a nice rest in the sun and just taking a day off from the bike riding.
It looks absolutely idyllic here. Some of the finest cyclists in the world passing by just yards away, and the sun rays are more important to some people. As the race goes by, they can't leave anyway, of course, because the roads are all shut down today. That's underneath what will be the kilometre banner. But right now the bunch making the way towards the end of the penultimate lap. Still a long way behind. The leaders are now heading out towards the first climb on the last circuit.
Well, as soon as these riders come up to the line, that looks like Axel Merckx on the front of the main field. He isn't going to put much of an effort into trying to pull back that deficit because he's got his man Oscar Freire in the front group. The main field now going through the feeding station, and when they come up to the line, Phil, I reckon we will see a deficit of well over 3 minutes.
Yeah, I think it might be even more than that now. Remember too that Bartoli is somewhere in no man's land, or cameras haven't shown him for a while, but he's up there. There's Axel Merckx, the champion of Belgium, in that blank top to his jersey. Boys making quick snatches, taking on food, so at least this lot are planning on the last circuit.
The man on the front there is Lucas Shinto. A new hairdo for Lucas Shinto, one of the top domestiques on the circuit. A very good friend of Maximilian Chiandri's here, just ticking away on the front of the main field. Axel Merckx, resplendent in his Belgian national champions jersey, and there is André Schmeel. Right on his wheel is Eric Zabel. Zabel will watch this man very closely over the next couple of races. The difference between them at the moment is well over 100 points. But, you know, there's 100 points for a win in these World Cup races, so one win by André Schmeel could bring him right back into the chances.
There is still very much time here, and Schmeel has indicated he does not want to be selected for the Olympic Games for Belgium. He's concentrating on his World Cup defence and the possible World Championship. There's the gap going to the clock holding at about 4:17.
It's going to be very difficult for these guys to pull back anything like that because all of the big teams are represented in the front and there's no real reason for the main field to chase. I think they will ride round and maybe have a slight flurry for the lesser points at the moment, which is why Eric Zabel really has to stay in the bike race right now.